People say all the time, oh, we got to get the vice president out of the basement. He's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day, his 2 body people. That's it. And let Trump keep doing what Trump's doing. It's hard for the vice president to break through. You've got the COVID crisis. He's not a governor, doesn't have a National Guard. He's not the president, doesn't have the briefing room. He needs to come out strategically. And when he says something like he did on race relations 2 days ago, it needs to have a big impact, thoughtful. And that's what we're preferring that he actually do at the time. He's doing a lot of local. He's talking to 2, 3 governors a day. He's doing roundtables, Zoom calls. He's doing with local officials. And a lot of it's being done in those 6 battleground states that we have going forward.
Now, I hope you understood what just happened, because it was fast. It was fast. But basically, that's Terry McAuliffe, my ex-governor in Virginia. Terry McAuliffe is a surrogate of Joe Biden. And Terry McAuliffe is making the point, we want to keep Joe Biden in the basement. Joe Biden is perfectly fine in the basement. If 2 people see Joe Biden, that is 2 people too many in the basement. Now, the African-American woman who's below him is almost going to hurt her neck, nodding at that, saying, yes, keep his ass in the basement. Because they know. They know what I know. And I strongly suspect what you know. Joe Biden is going to run this race, trying to win this race by doing as little as possible, being the nothing man. Let Donald Trump be Donald Trump. He has a COVID crisis that he is utterly failing at. He has a race, basically people flip it out, white, black, gay, straight, all of the around on this notion of policing. He's failed at that. And 40 million people are out of a job. He is failing at that. Let him handle it. Get a beer. Now, that sucks in the political process where you have a candidate that is so horrendous, so just utterly goddamn atrocious, that the other guy could beat Joe Biden and be up 12 points. Put that in. If Joe Biden was running against a ham sandwich right now, it would be an even match. That's how bad Donald Trump is at this moment. Anybody could beat Joe Biden if they were in a real race, in a real contest. And I'm saying real contest from the standpoint that you are actively going after your opponent and you're actively doing everything necessary in order to try to win. So I want to make a stipulation on that from the standpoint of Sanders. But these guys are running in a race. The catch here is Donald Trump has just done a horrendous job. He's failed at everything. And so it's like, what do I need to do as Joe Biden? I can only make the situation worse. The more time I am out there, the worse my chances. It's the same reason that Joe Biden says I only want 3 debates. And even was honest. Yes, I am up like 10 points. Why would I lower myself to debate you? Why would I take the chance? I might fall out on stage or something. I might shit myself on stage. Who knows? I can't take that chance. I might go sundowning. 3 debates, buddy. That's all you get. Now, if this was a closer race, so if Joe Biden was, let's say, trailing, or if this race was in more of a question, he would want more debates. The catch here is he wants to limit his exposure to the American public and limit his exposure to to Donald Trump, meaning making the chances of Donald Trump hitting him as less as possible. That's what's taking place. That's why Joe Biden is basically hands off. You'll see him on Twitter every so often, and yes, he'll go and make huge amounts of cash. And no, he doesn't care what you think 1 iota. It's the reason why you could say, I want Medicare for all to the tune of 88%, and he could say, kick rocks. But first, I just want to nail that home. Joe Biden surrogate, keep Joe Biden in the basement. If you had an electric figure as a candidate, would you say that? Think about what I'm asking you. If you had an electrical figure, if a guy that gets on stage and the crowd's just like sort of like, yes, and this kind of revelation, but in a political sense, you can call it secular sermons of sorts. Would you keep him in the basement? I don't think so. I don't think so. They're keeping this guy in the basement because they know this. 81% of the people who are voting for Trump are voting for Trump because he's Trump. 18% are voting to stop Biden. Those people think Biden is an absolute catastrophe and must be stopped. 18%. 35% of the people who are voting for Joe Biden are voting for Joe Biden. 62% are voting against Trump. Tell me you see a problem with that. Joe Biden basically doesn't have to do anything because the people aren't voting for him for anything other than stopping Trump. You're not sick of being in that place as a society? How can your society ever get anything adjusted in a political space when you have one guy that is just so abysmally atrocious and the other guy that is just fucking horrible? Choose. Choose. Maggie Haberman says the truest thing on the planet. She does nothing wrong. She is blameless in this. She is an innocent flower, if you want to call it that. CNN tells the truth. Liberals lose their minds. Now, the catch is, why did they lose their minds? Is this something, I mean, was she being racist, sexist, bigoted? What was she doing? Was she being, overtly provocative? Did she try to come on to Anderson Cooper or Axelrod? What? No, she told the truth. Joe Biden is a flawed candidate. They lose it. Apoplectic. Heads explodes. I'm going to show you that. It's some of the funniest shit you would ever read in your life. A woman says something that's just true, and people can't handle it. It's too much. It's too much. Oh, it's too much. Too much. Shattered. Utterly and entirely shattered. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you allowing me to do it. I saw this video, I saw this clip, and I died laughing. I thought this was the funniest shit ever. More so for the reaction that everybody had for it, because it was the most innocent, truest thing ever. If you lived in 2016, in fact, I was going to do this after, but if you lived in 2016, this is what you would have believed if you were a liberal. Right here. Real clear politics. Clinton versus Trump. Let's see. The corresponding period is, where are we? We're in June 23rd, I think. Right here. Clinton, 45.3. Trump, 35.4. 10-point gap. No, I'm sorry. 6-point gap. Not nothing. Not nothing. And if you go a little further in, where you hit June 27th, you get Clinton at 46.4. Looking down disapprovingly at Trump at 39.6. I have polling even from the necessary states, where basically the I think it's the 6 states, that the swing states, where Clinton dominating in all of them at this point in the election. Libs were. I was at an office where the guy basically was saying it's like, yeah, man, I can't believe you think Trump might win this. Now, the reason I thought Trump might win it is because as we were looking at the map that morning, I couldn't necessarily see where Clinton got all of her votes, meaning I couldn't see all of the states. And because I couldn't see all of the states, and I heard news that people were being sent to Wisconsin in an emergency, well, you don't send people to Wisconsin for an emergency at the last minute. I don't know what you're going to get on the last day of that particular election after not even going to the state. She lost. She lost. And they went nuts. And I think that what's happening is that the idea that they could lose again, that their world could be so shattered, where in their heads, this election is a lock. It is a lock like I walk outside and there's a world out there locked. It is a lock like my next breath is going to come down my body. And it was not. It was not. The idea that it can happen again is too much to bear. So let's hear Maggie Haberman tries to inject a little bit of reality into CNN.
Go before votes are cast.
I don't know any Democrats, honestly, Anderson, who think this is going to be an easy election. I think David can possibly speak to that more than I can, but I certainly don't know any who think this is going to be easy, in part because a lot of people are very scarred by thinking that 2016 was going to be easy. And by people, I mean Democrats were scarred by thinking that Hillary Clinton was naturally going to defeat Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton thought that, her top advisors all thought that, and they were sort of appalled and couldn't allow for the fact that he was doing as well as he was, and reality overtook them. And so I think that there are Democrats who are concerned that that is what will happen again. Look, as much trouble as Donald Trump is in politically right now, a lot of it of his own making, but certainly not all of it. Joe Biden is still a very flawed candidate. He is running a flawed campaign so far. There are still 4 months left. They have to have what are supposed to be 3 general election debates. 4.5 months ago, we were not talking about the coronavirus the way we are talking right now. So a lot can happen. And I do think it is important to remember that at the end of the day, elections are still binary. And people, if they decide to vote, unless...
Now, none of this is off the rails. All of that is true. Everything she just said. We thought Clinton was going to win. Many Democrats were shattered by the fact that she didn't win. And they're looking at Trump, and they're looking at Biden, and yes, Biden is ahead. However, Joe Biden is a flawed candidate. And in being a flawed candidate, we have 3 debates that are coming up. We've had several reversals, meaning from topic, meaning coronavirus, race relations, all of a sudden the black thing, and Sanders, and then Sanders flaming out almost overnight. So can you immediately say, yeah, we got it as a lock? No, you can't do that. And yeah, he's running a campaign from his basement. And most of the public is voting not because they even like him, but just because they hate Trump. He knows it, which means he doesn't give a shit about what the public wants. He's just going to be Joe Biden. That's true. All of that is true. She has a little bit more. Let's hear the rest of what she has to say.
Unless they decide to write someone in, are going to make a choice between these 2 men. And there are going to be a lot of people who, even if they are unhappy with Donald Trump right now, there will be people who still decide to vote for him in the end. It is a real mistake for anybody to start calling the election today based on, and it's important to not overplay what happened over the weekend, which was ultimately a rally in a red state. They made it a big deal, but on its own, it's not that big a deal.
Right there. Right there. I mean, there's only 6,200 people at the rally. But again, COVID-19 and all of this other stuff. Look, what she said was true. All of that was true. Great. I would have welcomed her on the show to give analysis that was that good. By the same token, she called Joe Biden flawed. And that can't be, that won't, lefties or libs won't abide it. So you have a litany of people that are responding immediately under her in this video. Alyssa Milano, flawed. Joe Biden won the nomination earlier than any candidate since 2004. Okay, I don't know what that means. Biden, flawed candidate, is leading Trump by 12-point ever poll. Okay. Hillary just happened in a vacuum. There was no Putin. Comey was no complicit media. With Maggie Haberman, we know there's a complicit media. They just need to get the other 2 in place. CNN is a cesspool. Okay, now they're attacking CNN. I don't know what that one meant. I don't know why you're attacking her. I mean, and there are more. Deborah Messing, Maggie Haberman, you ignore that Joe Biden won the nomination earlier than any Democratic nominee since 2004 and unified the biggest field ever after winning. But hey, you go on. Are you serious? Are you serious? And, they're repeating each other. Okay, that's interesting. All right, here's another one. Dean Obadiah. The reason Maggie Haberman slams Joe Biden on CNN is to keep her access to Donald Trump, period. Nothing, no more to debate. That's nasty. I don't believe that. I mean, you would have to actually believe that that Joe Biden is not a flawed candidate. Are you fucking serious? People were questioning whether he had cognitive decline for the longest time. It wasn't that Joe Biden was loved and people selected him. Joe Biden was just always the default candidate. He was the guy who they considered to be just a typical Democrat. And as the typical Democrat, they voted for him on this notion of electability. But keep in mind, that wasn't because they loved Joe Biden. If you looked at all of the policies and everything else, other people won. Joe Biden got it entirely on this notion of he's more electable. And then you had Obama clearing the field. All of them get out. All of them endorse Joe Biden. Sanders never throws a punch in this fight. I mean, you could say Joe Biden won a primary, yeah, but he won a pillow match. Basically, Elizabeth Warren wasn't going after him. The other Democrats weren't going after him. The media, for the most part, left him alone. It was a pillow match. It was a coronation. It wasn't necessarily a debate. If you want to see an actual race, go back and look at Obama and Clinton. You had two sharks that actually wanted to win. Nothing. This was nothing. And it's evidence of such at the end where you have how many people are voting for Joe Biden? How many people are voting against Trump? That type of stuff. That's embarrassing. But I would wager to you, Joe Biden doesn't care that that's embarrassing. Joe Biden just wants to win. He just wants to be president. Here's the catch. Your candidate is flawed. This is what your candidate... Oh, and by the way, the speed at which you win a nomination has nothing to do with whether or not a candidate is flawed. Candidates can have weaknesses because candidates are human beings. In Joe Biden's case, cognitive decline, his inability to speak all that well, his inability to stay up for long periods of time and actually, be coherent in the way that he goes about it. The lying is just atrocious and sad. And maybe you guys don't necessarily care about that, but those are things that matter, especially if they are targeted in the middle of a campaign. When Joe Biden was hit with the notion that he was lying about Social Security, Joe Biden fell in those polls. And lying about civil rights, lying about South Africa, he's a habitual liar. I'm just saying that's called a flaw, just in and of itself. But yeah, the cognitive decline is damaging. The inability to connect with the crowd is damaging. The inability to actually have policy that address what the public needs is damaging. And not just to him as a candidate, but to us. If it wasn't for the fact he was running against somebody who was just fucking abysmal, Joe Biden would lose. He is the weakest thing that the Democratic Party has ever put up. And it's just so happened that he is running against something that is utterly atrocious, that may actually allow him to shuffle in, stumbling and muttering, barely remembering his own name. That's really clear. This is what Joe Biden used to be. And then it's going to show you what Joe Biden is now.
Recently in a speech in Washington said 30% of the American people are takers. These people are my mom and dad, the people I grew up with, my neighbors. They pay more effective tax than Governor Romney pays in his federal income tax.
Now, sharp, on point, active, aggressive. That's what he was a few years ago.
We choose truth over facts.
He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault.
I was a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday. All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
Chris. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other Biden. I love it.
And the next one, he's going to tell you in a state to which he is not in, meaning he didn't know where he was. You have a flawed candidate. You have a flawed candidate. And just to be clear, Donald Trump knows it. And even though Sanders wasn't necessarily willing to go there. In fact, I'll do a different video. This will be a whole separate video. I'll do this one next. I'm going to end this here. I'm just going to say that woman did nothing wrong. You guys, your issue, honestly, is with reality itself. If you can't accept the reality that Hillary Clinton just lost, which then you use this Russia nonsense in order to try to paint over the fact that she just failed miserably. Well, Joe Biden is not immortal of sorts, certainly. And in this race, the public is going to look him over. And despite all of the COVID-19 stuff, all of the protests and everything else, the fact is he is not in his basement. He is out in public. And Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that she had a lead in that race, she still ended up losing that race. Right now, Joe Biden has a substantial lead. Will that last for the next several months? Who knows? Do you know as a flat fact it will? You do not. And can you accept, based on previous behavior, that Joe Biden is not necessarily going to say something that is damaging, that is going to hurt his campaign with a fatal or mortal wound? No, you don't. You just don't. Everything she said was perfectly correct. Your issue, again, is with reality itself. Like, share,